You don't seem to understand, the voice note began, slick as hotel marble. Listen to me. Your husband is spending this weekend with me, whether you like it or not. Your opinion means nothing. Is that clear? If you dare to interfere, your life will be hell. I replayed it twice before I let it finish its little performance. Coraline Bly, Corey to the friends she collects like limited bags, had a broadcaster's confidence, the kind that expects applause when it crosses a room. She spoke like a person who'd never had to wait for service, never been put on hold, never heard the word no without an attached apology. I'm Maris Vale, and I write grant proposals for non-profit outfits that either do great work or want to look like they do. I'm good at structure, aims, methods, feasible budgets, outcomes that can be measured. The trick is always in the timeline. Timing is the argument. If you tell a committee how a project will unfold week by week, the dollars follow. It was Friday. My home office smelled like printer toner and the lavender hand cream my friend Ro keeps pushing on me. The spare room door was cracked, and from where I sat, I could see the silk scarf draped over the bed rail. The scarf he'd brought me from a conference years ago when he was still trying to impress me. Keir's aftershave lived in that fabric like a habit. The leather briefcase he liked to slam shut stood by the guest room dresser. Corey's sentence replayed in my head, word for word. Your husband is spending this weekend with me. She'd chosen spending, like time was a luxury card she swiped on a whim. Her second flourish was the threat about my life. If you dare to interfere, your life will be hell. People who talk like that imagine they control weather. I didn't send a reply. I opened the shared calendar Keir and I use for work travel, the compromise we reached after one too many missed dinners. His block for the weekend said, Boss, MIA, Client Hospitality, returns Sunday evening. A thin grey note beneath it added, Private leg, Sat morning, ref, Judah. I clicked. The details expanded into flight codes and a number I recognized. Judah Pike ran logistics for a charter outfit Keir's firm used when they wanted to seem important. My fingers hovered over the keys. Structure, sequence, outcome. I called Judah. He answered on the second ring. Pike charter. Hi, Judah, I said, warm but businesslike. Maris Vale for Keir Harron. I'm confirming a travel update. We've had a shift in the client's Saturday schedule. They want an extra stop on the way down, and Keir wants to keep the return flexible. I have the authorization code if you need it. He repeated my words back to me, vowels tapping like instrument panels. Judah is the kind of man who will double-check a sunrise if it touches his ramp. Right. I see the Saturday morning leg on my end. What's the change? Push the first departure by 2 hours, use the Newark hub instead of Teterboro, and add a layover in Savannah for a client drop. For the return, extend the window. He'll confirm Sunday morning. Copy, I'll notify the crew. Please also update the company access portal, the one Harlan's team pulls from for expense logs. Keir wants everything clean for audit. The word audit is a small bell that makes certain professionals stand up a little straighter. Judah typed, Okay. Portal updated. I'll email the manifest when the crew closes it. We thanked each other and hung up. When I did, I filed a travel update through the scheduling account the company uses. Same details. New hub, added layover, flexible return. Then I left the computer and walked through the house the way I always do when the air changes. Before we deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Our place is a narrow 3-story on a block with a good bakery. The guest room held that scarf, and the briefcase and nothing else. In the closet, shoeboxes nested. I opened the top one. Inside were paper copies of statements, old and new, because I like paper when I'm planning something serious. I slid my finger under a manila clip and freed a sheet, the trust document I'd drafted with a lawyer friend. Instead, I packed nothing. Not a change of clothes, not a toothbrush. The urge to throw things in a bag was there, hot and theatrical. I let it pass. Packing is for running, and I had no intention of running. I needed my hands free for paperwork. My phone pulsed. A new voice note. I touched it with the detached curiosity of a person inspecting a broken watch. Still no answer. Corey's voice now came wrapped in a laugh. Cute. I hope you're not planning to trail us. You won't catch up. He wants a quiet weekend, and I'm giving him one. You can sulk in your tidy house. Check your calendar if you need proof. I almost smiled. I didn't need proof. I needed a window and a route with detours. I texted my friend Ro. Ro Mercer and I built a boutique PR shop together before I moved to grant writing, and she went full crisis whisperer. She knows the city and where reputations go to recover. I wrote, "Someone tried to scare me with a microphone. Don't worry, I'm fine. How's your Saturday?" Ro, "Booked until 2, then free. Do I need spare sneakers or a pen?" Pen. Back at the desk, I opened Kia's email on the home computer. We've never policed each other's accounts, but we've never been shy about using the same machines either. He had sent a message to his assistant. "Bring the briefcase to the courier at 4, same guy as last month." I made a note. At 3, I walked to the spare room and lifted the briefcase. It weighed the same as it always did. Self-importance has a consistent mass. I set it back down and called the building concierge desk. "This is 3B, I said. "A courier is coming at 4 for a corporate sample. I'll sign." "Of course, Ms. Vale." 4 o'clock came, the elevator pausing on every floor. At the door stood the courier Kia likes. Polite, barrel-chested, a stitched logo over his pocket that made him look official. He glanced at the briefcase, then up at me. "I'm here for Mr. Harron," he said. "Pick up for the weekend." "I have it," I said, holding out the printed voucher I'd prepared. It was a template from a designer friend. Clean fonts, quiet promise. "We had to route it through me because he's already on his way to the airport. You'll be dropping it at the club, right?" He checked the code, checked my face, checked the name on the voucher, which matched a reference in his handheld screen. I'm not dramatic, but I do understand systems. When you show a person the right details in the right order, suspicion goes down like a dimmer switch. "Right," he said, taking the case with both hands. "I'll mark it." He lifted the stylus, let me sign, and left with a neutral smile that said nothing interesting had happened. As the elevator doors met, I watched our reflections for a second. I felt alert, like a sound check. Kia texted at 5:15, a photo of 2 chilled glasses with a not Florida ocean in the background. The light looked like late afternoon north of Miami. In the corner, a woman's hand with coral polish held a straw. The caption, "Work and recreation can coexist." He likes to sound clever in captions. I wrote back the 3 words I'd decided on that morning, the ones that say nothing and everything. "See you Sunday." He typed bubbles that never arrived. I put my phone face down and opened my laptop instead. Judah's manifest hit my inbox at 6. Leg pushed, hub changed, layover set. The return option read, "Flexible window, TBD." Perfect. I made tea. I checked the time. Then I opened a folder labeled Household and a subfolder labeled Insurance. I reviewed clauses on property and vehicles. People like Kia collect shiny things and expect respect. Contracts decide. Another message chimed, a video from Corey. She must have been waiting all day to send it. The camera faced them both at a seaside bar. Kia wore a navy polo and a grin that tried for relaxed. Corey leaned in, cheek to shoulder, her hair in flawless disorder, her voice riding the music. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, playing the word like it was mine. "He's exactly where he wants to be. Try not to call." They clinked. The shoreline wasn't the one he'd promised. That helped. I watched it once, then saved it in a folder named with the date. A ping from the charter portal followed. Manifest updated. The return had been shifted to a later slot Sunday, due to air traffic flow. More time I had designed. I thought of a phrase I once wrote in a grant. We will sequence interventions to maximize outcome. Bureaucratic but true. At 8, Rose showed up with takeout salads and 2 pens tucked behind her ear. Who do we need to outwrite? She asked, dropping into a chair. No one yet, I said. We need to outlast. She ate slowly. What's the play? Small moves. I've adjusted his route. I'll let the weekend go long and use the hours. Tomorrow we start touching the things he thinks can't be touched. Roe tilted a brow. You mean the Aston? And the accounts he thinks are smoke. Harlan's portals, the expense thresholds, the little ways he's taught people to look away. Roe nodded. She has seen men like Keir pretend to be necessary. Do you want me to make a noise? She asked. A whisper to a news desk. A hint that a certain firm's ethics policy is a brochure instead of a rule book. Not yet, I said. First I need to move pieces he doesn't watch. I need to make space. We went over the list. The courier accounts. The title on the car. The company app he never learned to log into. The employee who knows too much because she has to, and the executive who knows too little because it suits him. I'm good at conflict when it's framed as a plan. It keeps me calm. By 10, Roe left with a promise to be nearby. I washed the takeout containers, a habit that makes no economic sense but gives your hand something to do. I stood at the window and watched the block settle. A couple walked a small dog. A taxi idled. The bakery's night crew laughed. The phone pulsed again. It was Judah, a single line. All set for the adjusted Sunday window. We'll confirm crew by morning. I replied, Thank you, Judah. Appreciate your care. Then I put the phone down and let the quiet expand. I'm not the kind who throws plates or screams into pillows. What I do is I make a schedule and then I keep it. In the guest room, I touch the scarf, neat with Keir's aftershave. See you Sunday, I said to the empty, practiced room. Just before midnight, the portal pinged again. It was a maintenance note, and attached was the detail I'd been waiting for. The plane manifest listed the onward city as a smaller airport up the coast. The final line added, Weekend extension observed, crew remains on hold. Exactly the window I needed. I turned off the lamp and sat in the dark, listening to the small sounds of the building cooling. I'm not brave in the way movies sell it. I'm brave in the way spreadsheets are, columns that line up even when the numbers sting. Corey wanted me to feel small. It didn't work. I've never been frightened into smallness. When people threaten me, I do what I've always done. I turn threats into calendars. Morning light came in filtered through the slats, pale and patient. The kind of light that looks harmless until you realize it's the same brightness that exposes every fingerprint on a polished surface. I woke early, though I hadn't slept much. I'm not a morning person by nature, but precision likes sunrise. The first thing I did was open the shared bank app. Keir's profile was still logged in. He's generous with passwords when he thinks they make him look modern. I noted the balances, the transfers marked client courtesy, the small personal withdrawals disguised as office sundries. A few clicks told me what I needed: his favorite card for untraceable cash, the secondary business account, the pattern of deposits that fed his weekend habits. The briefcase that had left the apartment yesterday now sat in a downtown club safe. But its twin, Keir's older, dust-sleeved version, was in the closet behind winter coats. I pulled it out, brushed the leather, and checked its lock code. Still his birthday, because he believes no one bothers to remember. At 9 sharp, I dressed in neutrals, a soft blazer, dark jeans, flats that made no noise, and took the subway 2 stops to the dealer district. Cars gleamed behind glass like restrained creatures. My target was a particular Aston, the collector piece Keir bragged about every quarter when bonuses were fresh. He loved to talk about its scarcity, its heritage, how it symbolized precision and status. I only saw an asset with a resale certificate that could buy a future. Months earlier, while he bragged to colleagues, I'd requested a duplicate of the title under my name as co-owner. For insurance, I told the clerk, just in case something happens on a trip. The clerk hadn't cared. Paperwork speaks a fluent language of its own. Now I walked into the auction house with a confidence borrowed from the memory of that signature. A man in a blue tie greeted me with the gentle calculation of someone measuring both commission and risk. "Miss Vale," he said, checking the appointment. "You're here regarding the Harron Aston?" "Yes, I'm transferring it under the private sale provision we discussed last quarter. All documentation is ready." He gestured toward a quiet glass office. "Would you like to inspect the appraisal before we proceed?" "I've read it," I said, sliding a folder across the desk. "Proceed." He looked for hesitation. I offered none. When you deal with brokers, silence is as powerful as enthusiasm. While he filled forms, I watched mechanics guide the car from the storage bay. Chrome and steel, smooth as arrogance. The reflections of overhead lamps stretched across its hood like ribbons of privilege. I thought of Keir's hand on the gear shift, casual, proprietary. I thought of how he always said, "You wouldn't understand talk," whenever I asked simple questions about his toys. The dealer cleared his throat. "We can finalize within 48 hours. Payment to the designated account listed here." "Yes," I said, handing him a printed routing sheet, one tied to a trustee's name, not mine. "That account will handle all proceeds for educational purposes. Please expedite." He nodded. "Understood." When I stepped back into daylight, a taxi idled at the curb. I watched through its window as the Aston rolled down the ramp and into the afternoon traffic, the color shifting from graphite to silver as it passed beneath shadows. I expected to feel a pang of regret, but I didn't. I felt light, like air after a thunderstorm. On the ride home, I opened my banking app again. The joint card we still technically shared blinked with small balances. I transferred every available dollar into the mortgage account we co-signed years ago. Then, into a private branch of it, I'd reactivated under my legal maiden signature. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, just arithmetic and nerve. By early afternoon, Roe texted, "Progress." "Step 1 complete," I replied. Step 2 begins when the courier wonders where his delivery went. At 3, the courier called. His voice carried an edge of worry. "Ms. Vale, I wanted to confirm. Mr. Harron never met me at the club. The briefcase is in secure hold, but he's unreachable. Should I release it to the alternate contact?" "Hold it for now," I said calmly. "He's delayed on travel. I'll let you know when he confirms." "Copy that." When I hung up, my hands were steady. Keir's assistant, Lorna, sent an email half an hour later. "Did you move the car?" "The garage inventory shows it missing, and Mr. Harron's auto tags are being flagged." I typed back, "Strange. Perhaps logistics. Let me check." She replied with an angry gif of a cartoon losing its mind. I didn't answer. The rerouted flight ensured that Keir wouldn't see the issue for at least another day. According to the charter log, he'd just landed for his layover in Savannah. Plenty of time. Evening descended slow and deliberate. I made coffee instead of dinner, opened spreadsheets and catalogued assets like a calm accountant. Art, jewelry, home equity, vehicles. Each item found a line. Beside them, projected values. I wasn't planning to ruin him. I was simply reclaiming the narrative he thought was his alone. At 7, I visited the bank's after-hours drop. The clerk recognized me from years ago and smiled. "Always organized, Ms. Vale," he said, as I submitted a transfer form. "Someone has to be," I answered. On my walk back, the air was brisk. The city hummed with its usual end-of-week chaos, taxis blaring, laughter spilling from bars. To anyone watching, I must have looked like an ordinary woman heading home after errands. But inside, I was marking time, step by step, like a metronome leading an orchestra no one knew existed yet. Back at the apartment, I opened a bottle of still water and sat at the desk. The emails from Keir were piling up unread. His first subject line read, "Flight delay." The next, "Still waiting for clearance." The third, hours later, said, "Might stay another night. Hotel comped." Perfect symmetry. At 9, I pulled out the folder from my closet labeled "Personal." Inside was a document I'd avoided reading for months, our prenuptial agreement. Most couples treat theirs like an unopened box in the attic, but I'd read every word the day it was signed. Clause 14 gave me partial control over any assets used jointly for professional representation. The Aston fell neatly under that umbrella. It had been paraded at conferences, photo shoots, and client dinners. Joint representation meant joint disposition. I underlined that clause with a red pen. Then came the call I expected, row again, voice low and amused. "You won't believe this. Someone from Keir's firm just tried to buy ad space in Investor Weekly under emergency notice. Guess whose name they're trying to scrub from an article about compliance oversight?" I smiled into the receiver. "Our friend Harlan, perhaps." "Bingo, he's sweating. My contact says his assistant called the publisher 3 times in an hour, something about postponing an upcoming feature until further internal review." "Good," I said. "Let him marinate." "You're enjoying this a little," she teased. "I'm enjoying the order of things being restored." We talked logistics until nearly midnight. By then, Keir's assistant had left 2 voicemails demanding a callback about the missing vehicle. I ignored both. At 12:10 a.m., a final message appeared from an unknown number, Corey's. "Nice stunt with the schedule," she wrote. "He says the reroute cost him his dinner reservation. You think this will keep him from me? Try again, darling." Her arrogance was a comfort. It meant she hadn't yet realized how deep the cracks went. I replied with a single line, "Enjoy the weekend extension." Then I placed the phone face down and exhaled slowly. The apartment was silent except for the faint buzz of the refrigerator. I walked to the window, looking down at the street lamps, painting the pavement in squares. Somewhere below, people were still awake, still believing their routines were safe. In the distance, a siren wailed and faded. I closed the curtains. Tomorrow would bring the first official notification from the bank about the asset transfer, and by the time Keir's flight landed, the Aston would belong to a numbered account he'd never find. My trust for Alden, my son, my quiet center of gravity, would gain its first funding line. I sat at the desk again and wrote a note for myself, not as confession, but as record. He mistakes anger for power. I'll use paperwork instead. Then I filed it under the folder labeled Plan, Phase 2. Outside, the city exhaled. Inside, I began to count down the hours to his return, 1 tick of the clock for every assumption he'd ever made about my silence. When the elevator hummed in the distance, I didn't look up. The night belonged to the calm before his confusion, and I intended to savor every minute of it. By Monday morning, the air in our apartment felt staged. Too clean, too composed. I had scrubbed every counter, lined up every document, as if tidiness could stand in for certainty. The kitchen clock blinked 8:02 when my phone rang. Unknown number, corporate tone. "Mrs. Vale," the voice was clipped, male, mid-Atlantic accent. "This is Everett Lang, counsel for Mr. Herron. I'm calling regarding some irregularities in asset management and property control. Mr. Herron has asked me to clarify your recent actions." He said it like a weather report, factual but warning of rain. "Irregularities?" I repeated, letting the word hang. "The sale of an automobile jointly registered under his name, for instance, and the hold placed on certain financial accounts this weekend." "Irregularities," I said again, "require context. Every action taken was within documented authorization." Silence, the kind lawyers use to measure how much confidence you really have. Then, "Mr. Herron would appreciate a conversation before this escalates." "I'm sure he would," I said. "Please inform him that my counsel will respond through proper channels." It was satisfying, that phrase, proper channels. It sounds obedient while meaning the opposite. After I hung up, I sent a single text to Ro. Stage 2 begins. Legal noise incoming. Her reply came quick. Smile for the cameras. Noise means they're worried. An hour later, a courier dropped an envelope on my doorstep. Inside, a letterhead too glossy, paragraphs too polite. Formal demands for restoration of assets, access to joint accounts, and immediate communication. The letter closed with the promise of further legal action. I read it twice, then filed it beneath my own folder, titled Response Drafts. My version of order is built from copies, timestamps, and patience. At 10, I called my friend and lawyer, Greta Hammond. Greta is a specialist in civil compliance and marital asset division. She doesn't smile unless there's paperwork attached. I knew this day would come, she said when I told her. Men like him always believe a boundary is a misunderstanding. Send me every document you have, purchase records, bank notices, anything with your name. Already shared, I said. Check your inbox. Within the hour, she called back. This is solid. You stayed inside legal fences. We'll respond with acknowledgement and a request for documentation of his spending. That'll slow him. Good, I said. I need slow. She laughed softly. Maris, you don't need slow. You're building a clock. By afternoon, Keir himself finally broke the silence. His email arrived with the subject line. What are you doing? I opened it and read the kind of self-justifying prose that only a man cornered by his own mirror could write. He accused me of sabotage, misunderstanding, emotional overreaction. The phrases were neat, deliberate, almost rehearsed. I could imagine him dictating them in a hotel room while checking his reflection between sentences. I drafted a reply, but didn't send it. Instead, I attached 3 PDFs. His own company expense statements marked personal off-books, each signed with his initials. Then I forwarded the same to Greta and to the company's compliance office with the note, possible misclassification of business expenses. Request review. Keir's firm prided itself on internal integrity. Even the rumor of irregularities could start a small panic. By 5, Greta confirmed the compliance office had acknowledged receipt. They'll open an inquiry, she said. You just launched an internal review. That night, I sat on the balcony and watched lights shift across neighboring windows. Some glowed steady, others flickered with televisions. I wondered if any of those households held similar quiet wars. Marriages negotiating through documents instead of words. At 10:23, an email arrived from Harlan Jest, Keir's CFO. The subject line read, clarification needed. He wrote, Maris, I understand there have been communications with compliance referencing certain reimbursement reports. I'd like to assure you that the company maintains transparency. However, this weekend, some disbursements were temporarily halted pending clarification. I trust this is a misunderstanding. The phrasing was fragile. Harlan always wrote like a man smoothing wrinkles in paper, afraid of tearing the page. I answered, No misunderstanding, Harlan. Audit ensures clarity. Let's both cooperate. Within 20 minutes, he replied, Of course. For the record, some accounts are temporarily frozen until Monday. Payroll may be delayed. There it was, the crack I needed. When people's paychecks tremble, whispers start. Whispering makes truth travel faster than email. Before bed, I called Ro. He's losing control of timing, I said. That's your specialty, she answered. Want me to nudge Vera? Soon, I said. Not yet. Let the paperwork breathe. Tuesday morning arrived with drizzle that misted against the kitchen windows, soft and persistent, the kind of weather that made the whole city seem to breathe slower. The streets below gleamed faintly, slick with early rain, and the clouds hung low enough to mute the skyline. I brewed strong coffee, dark roast, no sugar, and set my laptop on the counter, the glow of the screen reflecting faintly off the cup beside it. The newsfeed, loaded in quiet rhythm, a steady scroll of updates and speculation. Nothing public yet. No mention of Keir, no leak from the firm. But I could feel it coming. The investors' meeting was scheduled for Friday, and the silence before it was the kind that preceded a controlled detonation. Pressure, unseen but certain, was already beginning to build. At 9:12, my inbox pinged. Greta, she'd forwarded a copy of Keir's lawyer's second letter, long, polished, and desperate. The kind of legal tone that pretended to be measured while practically trembling with panic. Failure to respond may result in injunction. The words were dressed in civility, but I could smell the fear underneath. Beneath the forwarded message, Greta's commentary appeared in her usual crisp brevity. Standard bluff. We'll counter with itemized disclosures. Do you have receipts? I did. Every single one. Months of quiet, patient collection. Hotel invoices tucked into personal statements. Timestamps that aligned too perfectly with his supposed business trips. Credit card charges for resorts that no board-approved itinerary could justify. I'd built the archive piece by piece, each file labeled neatly, each line of evidence waiting for its turn. I attached them all into a single compressed folder labeled Reference Materials, then hit send. By noon, Greta had drafted our response. The language was exquisite, professional, calm, and edged like glass. Our client has complied fully with joint asset agreements and maintains documentation regarding all financial activities relevant to the marital estate. Further, she has observed irregular expenditures by Mr. Harron, potentially in conflict with company policy. Polite daggers, delivered in letterhead form. Rowe arrived that afternoon with a box of still-warm croissants and the kind of grin that meant gossip was coming. Guess who my contact overheard arguing in the executive lounge, she said, dropping her umbrella by the door. Harlan? I guessed, already knowing. Right, she said, clearly savoring the story. He was talking to a junior auditor, practically sweating through his tie, swearing he had no idea how certain transfers got flagged. The kid told him, and I quote, "The compliance server pings every wire that doesn't match pattern recognition." I raised an eyebrow. So the algorithm did my work for me. Looks like it. Rowe leaned against the counter, watching me. You're calm. I've done panic before, I said, stirring my coffee slowly. It's inefficient. Evening came in gradual shades of grey. The drizzle thickened into a steady rain, tapping against the windows, blurring the view of the city into a watercolour of lights and movement. At 7, my phone buzzed with a message from Keir himself, short, bitter, defensive. I hope you're proud. You're costing people jobs. I stared at the words for a long second before typing my reply. Actions have consequences, Keir. You taught me that. Then I archived the thread without another thought. An hour later, another email arrived. This one from Harlan, marked confidential. I opened it cautiously. Maris, for what it's worth, I've been instructed to pause pending disbursements until clarity is achieved. Between us, payroll is already affected. I'm requesting your assurance that your disclosures weren't intended to harm employees. I read it twice, the irony settling deep. They were already spinning the narrative, damage control disguised as moral appeal. I typed back, steady and precise. Transparency never harms. Concealment does. Handle your books, Harlan. After that, I closed the laptop. The digital hum of the city faded, replaced by the quiet percussion of rain against glass. From the window, the skyline pulsed faintly, towers flickering through fog, traffic glinting like veins of gold beneath the grey. Somewhere out there, Keir was making calls, rehearsing apologies, stitching together explanations that would sound like strategy. He would tell people he was managing a misunderstanding. He would say it was temporary. He would say anything, but my plan no longer needed me. It had its own momentum now, a slow, inevitable unraveling. Before sleep, I opened my journal and wrote one line, the ink bleeding slightly on the page. Men like him mistake urgency for control. Let him hurry. I'll count the hours. The next morning began before dawn, the air still heavy with rain. My phone buzzed at 6. Ro, as always, was ahead of the clock. Vera's producer wants to meet. She heard something's brewing. Anonymous tip from an insider. You? I smiled faintly at the screen. Timing isn't ripe. Let her wait. The audit will speak first. Later that afternoon it happened, a quiet tremor in the public sphere. A corporate memo leaked online. Temporary hold on executive reimbursements pending review. I read it once, slowly, savoring the rhythm of inevitability. Then I closed the browser, leaned back in my chair, and whispered into the quiet apartment, one line at a time. At 11:43 p.m., Harlan's name flashed again on my phone. The message was short, desperate. I froze the wrong accounts. Everything's halted. Payroll, too. Please, advise. I let the message sit unread for a full hour before answering. Then I wrote, Patience, Harlan. Clarity takes time. When I finally lay down, exhaustion pressed over me like warm sand. For the first time in months, I dreamed not of confrontation but of silence, the kind that follows the sound of a gavel or the click of a sealed folder. Outside, the rain intensified, streaking the windows in parallel lines. Inside, the trap was closing, steady as clockwork. Wednesday began with sunlight too bright to be innocent. I stood at the kitchen counter, spoon frozen in my cereal bowl, watching a news segment featuring Coraline Bly. She was at a brunch table surrounded by women in pastel blazers, all pretending to laugh. The chyron read, Charity Brunch, Social Entrepreneur Coraline Bly on Empowerment. Her voice had the exact sweetness of a practiced lie. Every woman should feel confident starting over, she told the host. When you find real happiness, you don't apologize for it. My phone buzzed with Ro's message. She's planning a live reveal this weekend. Says she has good news. I didn't need to guess. Corey had always loved the grand stage, the slow turn of heads, the glitter of borrowed sympathy. I knew what she was planning, a performance built on borrowed biology. Ro called a moment later, skipping her usual greeting. She's told the society circuit she's expecting Maris. With Keir. Publicly. She's going for the fairy tale angle before the audit drowns him. If you want to counter, now's the hour. I leaned against the counter and stared at my reflection in the glass door. Let her announce it. I'll announce the truth. How? With facts, Ro. They last longer than gossip. That afternoon I called Vera Quinn, the evening news anchor, with a face that could turn sincerity into spectacle. We'd met years earlier when she covered a grant scandal I helped untangle. She owed me a favor. Maris Vale, she said, her voice full of curiosity. You're still writing policy miracles. Something like that, I said. Vera, I need airtime. 5 minutes live. Topic, authenticity, accountability, relationships under pressure. She laughed. That's vague even for you. I'll make it concrete. It'll involve one of your favorite subjects, corporate hypocrisy. Does it come with documents? Plenty. Then you have my attention. Saturday, 10 a.m. slot. Don't disappoint me. Wouldn't dream of it. After hanging up, I opened the drawer where I kept the small box, the one that had arrived at my office months ago, long before the voice notes and the unraveling. Inside was a pregnancy test, still sealed, the same brand I'd once found in our bathroom trash before Keir swore it was a mix-up. I'd tested it myself out of morbid curiosity. Negative, as expected. Then I'd kept it. Something in me knew it would matter. The same week, I'd quietly requested a lab confirmation through a clinic that owed me a favor from a prior donation drive. Their report had arrived sealed, stating what I already knew. I'd filed it with my insurance papers, untouched, until now. Thursday moved like a machine. Greta prepped legal backup in case Kia's camp tried to spin. Ro arranged the interview logistics and looped in Vera's producer. My son Alden, now 23 and quieter than I ever was, called from his campus apartment. "Mom, you sound like you're planning something." "I'm finishing something," I said. He paused, hearing the difference. "Do you need me there?" "Not yet. Soon." That night, I received a text from Kia. "Can we talk privately before you do something we'll both regret?" I stared at it until the letters blurred. Then I replied, "You already did." Friday passed in a strange calm, like the space between lightning and thunder. The firm's internal audit had gone public. Newswires whispered about unconfirmed compliance concerns. Kia's team issued bland denials. Harlan stopped replying entirely. By dawn Saturday, my plan was set. I dressed in navy, understated but precise, and arrived at the studio an hour early. Ro met me in the lobby, clipboard in hand, eyes bright with adrenaline. "You're sure you want to do this live?" she asked. "Once it's out, there's no rewinding." "Exactly," I said. "Corey believes image is reality. Let's test that theory." In the dressing room, a makeup artist dabbed powder on my forehead and smiled nervously. "You look calm," she said. "I practiced." When the red light blinked on, Vera leaned forward across the sleek desk. "Good morning. Today we're joined by communication strategist Maris Vale, here to talk about truth in modern relationships." Her introduction framed me as an expert, not a wife. Perfect. "Maris," she continued, "in the digital age, image is everything. You've seen careers built and destroyed by perception. How do people hide behind it?" I smiled lightly. "By believing visibility equals virtue. But sometimes truth hides in the fine print." A ripple of curiosity crossed Vera's face, the signal we'd rehearsed. "I brought an example," I said, opening my bag. Out came the small box, sealed and neat. "This test appeared in my home months ago. It belonged to someone claiming to carry my husband's child." The studio went quiet except for the hum of lights. Vera hesitated. "And you're certain?" "Completely. I verified it through independent testing." I lifted the folded lab report. Negative. And further investigation revealed the result had been falsified. The same person used a clinic that specializes in forged confirmations for clients seeking leverage. Corey's name didn't need saying. Her face was already appearing on every watcher's mind. Vera's producer's voice cracked faintly through her earpiece. I caught it by the flicker in her expression. "You're saying the claim was manufactured?" "Yes, and I have documentation." I slid an envelope across the table, the same one Ro had triple-checked the night before. Emails, payment records, and a signed admission from a clinic employee who was dismissed last month. Somewhere across town, at the charity brunch Corey had arranged, I imagined her phone lighting up. Vera leaned closer. "Do you realize this will cause a public stir?" "I do, but truth isn't gossip, it's correction." The interview cut to commercial 15 seconds early. Producers rushed. Vera's eyes met mine, half shocked, half admiring. "You planned that perfectly." "It's all timing," I said, standing. By the time I stepped outside, my phone was vibrating with messages. Ro, Greta, even Alden. But one video stopped me cold. A clip already circulating online, shot at that same brunch. Corey was standing beside Kia, cameras flashing. Her lips parted mid-sentence when her assistant whispered something. Confusion spread over her face like spilled ink. Kia's smile faltered. Then he turned, as if searching for somewhere to hide. Within an hour, Vera's network ran a follow-up segment, fact-checkers citing the clinic's record of fabricated results. Ro called, half laughing. "She's trending for all the wrong reasons." That evening, I sat alone in the living room, a cup of chamomile cooling beside me. The apartment felt larger, emptier. For the first time, I let myself think about the woman I used to be, the one who would have pleaded for explanation instead of proof. She was gone, and I didn't mourn her. My phone buzzed again. Keir's message was short. "We need to speak in person." "Please." I typed back, "In due time." Sunday morning, Rose sent one last update. "Vera's sponsor wants to book you for a follow-up on corporate accountability. They're calling you the calm storm." I laughed softly. They can call it whatever they want. The truth's already out. When I hung up, I opened my calendar, scrolled to Monday, and typed a single note. Phase 4, audit fires. Then I closed my laptop and whispered into the quiet, "Your move, Keir." Outside, the city was waking, unaware that its headlines had just shifted. Monday's air tasted metallic, the kind that comes after a thunderstorm, even when the sky stays dry. I woke before dawn and lay still, letting the low hum of the refrigerator fill the space where Keir's breathing used to be. The apartment felt honest that way. Quiet, self-sufficient. By 7, Ro texted, "He's back in the city. Harlan's been called to the board. Press wants quotes." I brewed coffee strong enough to feel like an answer. The online headlines already hinted at turmoil. Compliance inquiry expands. Internal sources. Cite discrepancies in executive expenditures. No names yet, but anyone who knew the firm could read between the lines. At 9 sharp, Greta arrived carrying 2 folders and the calm of a woman who'd seen every variety of panic. She set the folders down, removed her gloves, and met my eyes. "They're in defensive mode," she said. "We're holding position." "What's their next move?" "They'll try to discredit your timing, say you acted out of resentment, that you exploited inside knowledge. Standard smokescreen. Harlan's already offering cooperation agreements to save himself. The board smells weakness." I nodded. "Let them circle. I've got the leash." Greta smiled thinly. "I'm beginning to believe you." By noon, the firm's HR department released a memo. Sterile wording about temporary executive leave pending investigation. That was the moment the story stopped being rumor. Within hours, financial blogs dissected it line by line, whispering the obvious. Keir Harron's kingdom had cracks. Ro called mid-afternoon from a taxi, voice buzzing with momentum. Vera wants to follow up. Sponsors are pressing for clarity, and she's got confirmation that the audit extends overseas. Harlan's sweating publicly now. He froze 2 payroll cycles. People are panicking. "Good," I said. "Let the panic ferment." "Maris, you're terrifying when you're calm." "I'm tired of letting other people define chaos." By late afternoon, Greta forwarded the first subpoena notice. Keir's firm had been compelled to provide electronic correspondence for the past 12 months. That included the email trail of hospitality reimbursements and client entertainment that mirrored his weekends with Corey. I felt no thrill, only gravity. A trap's beauty lies in its inevitability. That evening, Ro came by with takeout and updates. "Corey's gone dark. She's wiped her socials, cancelled appearances. But she's still clinging to him privately. I heard she showed up at his office this morning and caused a scene." "She thrives on stage lights," I said. "Take them away, and she starts burning furniture for warmth." Rose snorted. "You always did have a poet's way of describing disasters." "She made herself part of the show," I said. "Now she can live with the reviews." After dinner, we reviewed the next step. The charity auction scheduled for Thursday night, hosted by the same sponsors, now distancing themselves from Keir's firm. It was supposed to be a glamorous affair. Wine, bidding paddles, silent competition. Instead, it would become the stage for closure. "The condo's on the docket," Ro reminded me. "It's listed as collateral property from one of Keir's investment shells. You really think you can buy it outright?" "With help, yes," I said. "I've lined up 2 proxy bidders to keep the price in check. One is my lawyer's trust partner. The other's a retired accountant who owes Ro a favor. When the hammer drops, the deed lands in my file." Ro leaned back. "And what if he shows up?" "He will. He needs to be seen fighting for something. She looked at me for a long moment. You know this isn't just revenge anymore, right? It never was, I said quietly. It's proof. I'm tired of being the invisible variable in someone else's calculation. At 11 that morning, Harlan requested a private meeting. Greta joined me in her office conference room, a space that smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant. Harlan looked smaller than I remembered, his once crisp hair flattened by humidity, his briefcase sagging at the corners. Maris, he began, voice shaking. I need to explain. I didn't know the extent of what Keir was charging. He told me they were client entertainment expenses. I swear, I thought everything was authorized. Greta folded her arms. And the off-books transfers? Those were temporary holds. He said they were part of a bonus structure. I just followed his lead. I watched him fidget with his glasses. You froze payroll, Harlan. People noticed. I know, and I can fix it. I just need time. What you need, Greta said, is to cooperate with compliance. They already have half your emails. He paled. They do? I nodded. I sent them the rest. Harlan's mouth opened, then closed like a fish gasping for logic. He sagged back in the chair. He'll ruin me, he whispered. No, I said softly. You ruined yourself when you let him do the math for you. When he left, Greta exhaled. He'll fold within 48 hours. Once he gives testimony, your timeline becomes fact. Good, I said. Then it's time for the auction. The ballroom glittered with polite desperation, people pretending they hadn't read the news. Crystal chandeliers swung gently, casting light on dresses that cost more than most annual incomes. I wore black satin and quiet confidence. Ro hovered near the bar, phone ready, eyes scanning for Keir. He arrived 15 minutes late, tanned but strained, hair sharper than usual. Corey wasn't with him. He shook hands, smiled too wide, pretended not to see me. But our eyes met across the room, and the colour left his expression just slightly, like someone realising the magician knows their trick. The auction began with art pieces, then wine, then the condo, Lot 27, penthouse suite, riverfront district. The auctioneer's voice boomed. Opening bid, 2.4 million. My proxy bidder raised his paddle first. A ripple moved through the crowd. Keir's representative, his assistant, red-eyed and trembling, raised next. Bids climbed, steady, mechanical. 2.5, 2.6, 2.7. My second proxy entered at 2.8, just high enough to pressure. The assistant hesitated, whispered to someone off stage. Keir was pacing behind the curtain, phone pressed to his ear. The room's energy thickened, all polite smiles and hidden panic. 3 million, called my first proxy. 3.1, the assistant managed. 3.15, countered my second. A murmur. The auctioneer's hammer hovered. Do I hear 3.2? Silence. Going once, going twice, a sharp voice interrupted from the back. 3.2. Keir himself stepping forward, tie askew, jaw tight. He looked at me when he said it. I didn't flinch. My proxy raised the paddle one last time. 3.25. The auctioneer smiled, relieved. Sold, Lot 27 to bidder 459 for 3.25 million. The hammer struck wood. Final. The assistant sagged. Keir froze, calculating damage. I turned to leave, but Ro's whisper caught me. The deed's yours. You did it. Outside, night air felt new. I walked down the marble steps, heels echoing, and thought of every year I'd spent making myself small for his comfort. No more. By morning, headlines screamed, corporate power couple faces collapse amidst financial probe. Photos from the auction spread online, Keir's tense profile, my composed silence beside Ro. Greta called early. The bank processed the transfer overnight. The condo's title is under your trust. Official. Thank you, I said. He's finished, she added. The board suspended him pending full audit. Harlan already testified that Keir authorized all offshore transfers. When I hung up, I opened my window and breathed in the city. The noise below sounded almost kind. That afternoon, Ro and I met Vera at a quiet cafe. She wanted follow-up comments for her next broadcast. "You've become a folk hero," Vera said. "Women are calling you the strategist's avenger." "I'm not anyone's avenger," I said. "I'm a woman who read her own contracts." Vera smiled. "That line's going on air." Before leaving, Ro handed me a sealed envelope. Harlan's sworn statement, "Keep it somewhere safe." Inside were printed copies of emails where Keir directed hospitality transfers under Corey's initials. Proof enough to end any doubt. That night, as city lights scattered across the river, I sat at my desk with a glass of seltzer and watched the day's footage replay online. There I was, expression steady, eyes calm, as Keir tried to outbid his own undoing. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Keir. "You won't win forever. I'll rebuild." I typed, "You taught me the rules. I'm just playing better." Then I powered off the phone, turned out the light, and let the silence wrap around me, not as emptiness but as evidence. The morning after the auction, the world woke to a storm of headlines that no one could spin away. Heron Group under federal review. Anchor Vera Quinn confirms. Tip origin, internal source was spouse. Socialite Coraline Bly cancels media appearances amid investigation. I poured coffee, black, no sugar. The mug's warmth pressed steady into my palm. On the counter lay a stack of printed stories, each one a small obituary for Keir's reputation. I read none of them fully. I didn't need to. The titles told enough. At 9, the phone began its parade of calls. Lawyers, former colleagues pretending to offer sympathy while hoping for quotes. Reporters sniffing for emotion. I answered none. Then, precisely at 9:47, the doorman buzzed. "Mrs. Vale, a Mr. Heron is here to see you." "Tell him I'm busy," I said. "He insists, ma'am. Says it's urgent." "Everyone's urgent when they're cornered," I murmured. "Send him up." I waited in the kitchen. The doorbell rang twice. When I opened it, Keir looked like a version of himself that hadn't slept for weeks. His tan was gone. The corners of his suit jacket hung like tired flags. He didn't wait for invitation. He never did. Just walked in, the scent of travel and stale coffee clinging to him. "So this is what victory looks like," he said. "Quiet rooms and newsprint." "It looks like peace," I said. He laughed, sharp, joyless. "You think you've won because you embarrassed me on live television?" "I think I reminded people that arrogance isn't a legal strategy." He paced. "Do you realize what you've done? They're calling for my resignation. Half my team is suspended. And Harlan, he's given statements he'll regret." "He regrets more than statements." He turned to me, voice cracking into the old charm he used when cornering clients. "Maris, listen. We can fix this. I can walk away from the firm, start a new company. You can—" "Stop," I said. "Every sentence you start with 'I can' ends with a lie." He froze. I stepped closer, calm as glass. "You think this was about revenge. It wasn't. It was about proof. You lied to everyone, including yourself, and expected the world to tidy it up afterward. I simply stopped sweeping." He exhaled, a sound halfway between anger and pleading. "You always did know how to make me feel small." "You managed that without help." His jaw tightened. "Where's Coraline?" I asked. "Gone. Reporters outside her apartment. She blames me for everything." "She's half right." He stared at the floor. "Do you know what it's like to watch your name disappear from a board you built?" "I know what it's like to watch my life shrink for someone else's comfort. So yes, I understand erasure." For a long moment, silence stretched between us. Then his eyes hardened again. "You could have just left. You could have just told the truth." He opened his mouth to argue, but his phone vibrated. He glanced down, face draining. That was the board secretary. They're voting to terminate my contract effective immediately. I imagine the vote will be unanimous. He swallowed. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said. That's the point. He looked around the apartment as if seeing it for the first time. The framed photos of places we'd visited, the calm order of the room. Then he spotted the manila envelope on the coffee table labeled Deed, Riverfront Penthouse. His lips parted. You bought it, he said softly. Yes. With what money? With the kind that used to disappear from your expense reports. He flinched. You're impossible. No, I said. I'm organized. He sank onto the sofa, shoulders slumped. What happens now? Now you face what you built. The auditors will finish their work. The firm will settle its debts. You'll find that every bridge you thought could carry you has quietly been inspected and condemned. You sound proud of that. I sound finished with it. He stared at the floor for a long time before speaking again. And Alden? My son is safe, I said. He's doing what you never learned to do, build without pretending. He nodded slowly, understanding dawning. You always said there was something about him, his calm, his focus. I thought it was just you projecting. He's better than both of us. You raised him alone all those years. I raised him with purpose. There's a difference. The elevator bell chimed from the hallway before I could answer more. Rose's voice floated from outside. You ready? I opened the door wider. Rose stepped in, crisp suit, a folder in hand, eyes sharp. She paused when she saw Keir. Ah, the ghost at the feast. He glared. You always enjoyed meddling. Someone had to, she said. You left too many files open. She handed me the folder. Inside was a printed schedule, Vera Quinn live broadcast, special report on corporate accountability. The segment listed guests, including Vera, Roe, myself, and, unexpectedly, Alden Crow. Keir noticed the name. Alden, what does he have to do with any of this? Everything, I said. He asked for his own closure. His eyes narrowed. You're staging another scene? No, I said. This time he's staging his. The studio buzzed with controlled electricity. Technicians moved like silent bees, adjusting lights, microphones, cables. Vera greeted me with a firm handshake and a look that said she knew history was about to replay itself in another form. Alden sat beside her, calm in a grey jacket, posture steady. The years had given him quiet authority, the kind that makes people listen even before words start. Vera smiled into the camera. Tonight we revisit the story that's shaken the corporate world. But this time, we hear from someone rarely seen in this narrative, Mr. Alden Crow. Alden began softly, his voice even. For years, I watched my mother rebuild her life from shadows. People think justice is about noise. It isn't. It's about record-keeping, evidence. She taught me that truth has its own patience. Vera nodded. You reached out to us with additional documentation. He placed a folder on the desk. These are the original hospital records from Coraline Bly's supposed treatment last spring. They show the diagnosis she claimed never existed, the falsified billing under Mr. Harron's discretionary accounts, and the receipts that matched the firm's travel logs. It's all cross-checked. The studio air turned brittle. Vera's producer whispered something, probably legal clearance, but Vera didn't break stride. These are official documents. Certified, Alden said. We verified them with the hospital itself. On the monitor behind them, the files appeared. Sealed envelopes, signatures, matching timestamps. Viewers across the country would see them before Keir could deny a thing. I watched from backstage as Keir's face appeared on a split screen, his attempt at dignity flickering under studio lights. He'd been invited for a right of reply. Pride had made him accept. Now he sat opposite Vera, every muscle of his jaw working to hold composure. Vera turned toward him. Mr. Harron, would you like to respond? He inhaled sharply. These are private matters. My personal life has nothing to do with corporate performance. Vera's tone stayed measured. The documents show company funds used for personal purposes, Mr. Harron. He hesitated. I relied on information provided by others. Alden spoke quietly, cutting through the noise. Accountability doesn't mean fault alone. It means ownership. Keir looked at him, recognition dawning. You're her son. Yes, Alden said. The one you thought didn't matter. A murmur swept the studio. Keir blinked, as though trying to reconcile the young man before him with the child he'd chosen to forget existed. Vera ended the segment with the kind of composure only live television can teach. Thank you, Mr. Crowe, for your clarity. Thank you, Miss Vale, for your courage. Transparency begins with individuals willing to speak. Applause followed, subdued but real. Outside the studio, rain had begun, a soft drizzle that turned the city's glass towers into watercolour smears. Roe and I stood under the awning while Alden spoke to reporters. He handled them with unshakable grace. You proud? Roe asked. I'm relieved, I said. She nudged me. You realize you've become a myth. Every woman who ever wanted to prove quiet power exists. I'd rather just be a footnote with receipts. A car pulled up, a black sedan from Keir's old fleet, now company property. The driver handed me an envelope. Inside was a single sheet, termination confirmed, assets frozen, pending charges under review. Roe whistled. Official then? Yes, I said. He's untethered. We drove back to the riverfront condo, mine now. The key fit perfectly. Inside, the air smelled of polished emptiness, the kind of space waiting for definition. Alden joined us an hour later. He walked through the room silently, pausing at the wide windows that overlooked the city lights. Feels strange, he said, like history pretending to be furniture. It's just walls, I said. We'll repaint. He smiled. You really mean that, don't you? I do. We stood there together, mother and son, as thunder rumbled faintly across the river. For the first time, the sound didn't make me flinch. Then, from the intercom downstairs, a voice crackled. Mr. Harron requesting entry. Roe's brows shot up. Persistent. I pressed the button. State your purpose. Static, then his voice, tired, hollow. I came to return what's yours. What could that be? My dignity, he said, and a request for shelter. Just tonight, they repossessed everything else. Alden looked at me, uncertain. Roe folded her arms. You're not seriously considering... I am, I said. The elevator arrived minutes later. Keir stepped out wearing a coat soaked through, eyes rimmed red. For once, there was no performance left in him. This is temporary, I told him. You'll stay in the guest room. He nodded, humbled. Thank you. I led him down the hall, the same guest room where his briefcase once sat waiting, where the scarf had held his scent. Now it smelled of fresh paint and nothing else. He turned before entering. You still know how to make things look final. They are final, I said. You're here as a tenant, not a husband. He frowned. Tenant? 3 months lease, market rate times 3. You'll pay it if you want a roof. He blinked. You're serious. I've never been clearer. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. You taught me how to leave, he murmured. I looked him straight in the eye. And I taught you how to beg. The door clicked shut between us, final and clean. Outside, rain whispered against the windows. Roe poured us tea in the quiet living room. Alden leaned against the railing, watching lights shimmer on the river. What now? He asked. Now, I said. We live. The words felt strange on my tongue. Simple, almost weightless. Roe raised her cup. To paperwork and patience. To clarity, I said. Thunder rolled again, distant, harmless. And somewhere down the hall, in the guest room of a condo that no longer belonged to him, Keir Harron learned the first rule of consequence. Sometimes, mercy arrives as rent. I stood by the window until the rain softened to mist, then closed the blinds. The city outside kept shining, uninterested, impartial, and perfectly alive. The story was over, and for once I didn't need to narrate what came next.